very different. So that's good. The cruising RPM is a lot lower. I don't know if you'll be able to. Okay, guys, I put myself up in the little corner there so you can see my face while I completely disappoint you with the rest of this video. So I wanted to show you some scans. We're gonna talk about some things. This was today. This was a long time ago. 9/21/18, 2018. The file name is Rich Engine Coolant Temp Messed Up. 11.7 pass at 119. So I wanted to show you guys the difference in scans. And this was later in the year. This was September. So this was one of the last track days that I went to when I thought I was having a problem with my torque converter. So I started scanning. I started logging the slip percentage, slip RPM. I want to clarify that. It's the slip RPM. There is like a converter slip percent calculation, which can get really kind of messed up and throw things off. But I wanted to show the difference between today and one of these last track days. So granted, this is a little bit subjective. It's a different scenario. It's a completely different scenario. One, I'm kind of rolling into it over here at starting at 40, 50 miles an hour. So I'm rolling into it versus a drag pass, basically. So my issue that I was having, that I was seeing a long time ago in yesteryear, And excuse this scan a little bit because you can see my engine coolant temp line. This is the green line down here. Kind of got whacked out. So you see my engine coolant 196, and then it got 104, and then it was like back to 196, and it was kind of like jacked up all over the place. So I ended up having like a loose connection with my coolant temp sensor. It kind of threw everything off, threw the fueling off a little bit, so I felt weird, and I lifted. That's why you see like this throttle position change and a bunch of weird stuff going on, because I felt it change. It was different. You can see it went like really rich right here. I think this is like a 9 something. Yeah. 9.96 air fuel ratio it was measuring. So it was jacked, it bogged, and I lifted and got out of it. Besides the point, let's look at the orange line down here. This is the torque converter slip RPM. So we start out the pass. We're just cruising along, doing what we do. And this is the part that I'm focused on here. The slip RPM over here is 1,430 RPM in second gear, and then it starts to come down. And the lowest point that I'm seeing at the end of second gear is 900. So, and keep in mind, it does spike back up at the gear change. And if we're watching RPM at the top, we get to about 6,600. Then we come down to about 6,100. So you see about a 500 RPM drop. So the next scan, it doesn't completely go into third gear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare second gear. So if we go to, let's just pick a spot here. So we'll say towards the end of second gear, because my 2-3 shift is usually right at the 8th. Or was last year. So my 2-3 shift. So let's say right here we're at a 1,000 RPM slip or converter loss. So basically this calculation is the difference between my engine RPM and my transmission input shaft speed. So it's basically calculating how much RPM I'm losing at the torque converter. So let's remember all of these numbers, every one of them. 6,600 RPM. We'll look at the speed. This is kind of critical from what I was looking at before. 89 miles per hour and 1,000 slip. So let's go to the same spot on this scan. So this is the second, the scan I did today. And here we have the 2-3 shift. So what I decided or concluded from looking at this scan is it didn't actually complete the shift. So the gear change is this orange, purple, pink, pink line right here. So I don't know, it's like a turquoise or whatever. You guys get all tripped out when I fuck around and I mess up the colors on purpose. Some people think I'm serious. But anyways, so the 2-3 change line looks like it happens right here, but it actually happens a little bit later. So and I can show that one better on this scan. So if you look at the RPM up at the top over here, we're at 65, and this is going to come over. We'll go to 66 is about the highest when it wants to do the change. You can see the gear change says it already happened. So it's in third gear, but the gear change didn't actually happen right when the line says it happened. So now it's going to start to come down. We're at 61, and that's about officially when the gear change was done, and you can confirm that by the spike in the torque converter slip from the extra load. So that's essentially why I'm just looking at the second gear portion of this on here. Anyways, so let's go to about the same spot. So we'll go to like 6640 because that's about as high as it goes right here. And you can see it started to maybe spike up a little bit where it was going to shift, but I already lifted at that point. So the last point I was at 100% throttle was 6,634 RPM. So now we'll match this one up. Let's do that. So 6634, the closest point we can get it to second gear. blah, blah, blah. 66.37. So that's pretty close. So now let's compare here. 89 miles an hour, 1,000 RPM slip at the same RPM. So this is today. 100 miles an hour and 300 RPM slip. So you're seeing a difference in loss of about 700 RPM. And the truck is 11 miles an hour faster in second gear before the 2-3 shift. So that's what I'm getting out of these scans. And I looked at a couple different scans now, and it's pretty consistent at about 11 miles an hour faster in second gear before the 2-3 shift, which makes perfect sense because the engine RPM is the same, but there's less loss through the torque converter. So the input shaft of the transmission now is spinning 700 RPM faster. Think about that. 700 RPM faster on 6,000 RPM total. So that's like over 10% gain. And from what I've been calculating, like this 339 to 6,600, that's only about a 5% loss, where before I was seeing up to 30% loss. So I'm interested to see once I actually get into third gear and I'm able to do some third gear pulls. Like the truck is quite a bit faster. I mean, 10 miles an hour comes pretty quick, and I'm very interested to see, like, once I can actually hold it in third gear for a little while, what the slip percentage is going to be. So the worst case here was about 1,000 down to about 300. So either way, it's looking like it's at least a 10% gain in efficiency from not losing RPM through the converter. So that was like a really long explanation of this, but this is kind of where my head's at right now, and I'm pretty excited about this. So this portion is really cool. It looks like, in theory, the truck is about 10 miles an hour faster at each RPM, which makes sense. So I'm very excited to see what it's going to do with this converter. The lockup points, which was the issue that I had before with it, the lockup is like spot on. It's really good. I don't even know if I can. Let me try to find some old scans or some ones from today. So cruising at 65, look at the apply time. The apply time is at 0.6 seconds. So the apply time is how long it actually takes to apply the lockup. And what I was seeing before, typically, this one says 2 seconds. Some of them are a little higher, 3 seconds, 1.4 seconds. But I'm basically looking at, is the torque converter applied? What is the duty cycle? What is the apply time? And with that other torque converter, after I started monitoring stuff, I never, ever saw the apply time at like 0.6 seconds. So, and the times that it is a little bit higher, like 1 second, 2 second, is when I'm, have a little bit of load on it, like 20. Let's see when it actually applied. So here it applied, right here. So we're at torque converter applied, no. Torque converter applied, yes. 23% throttle position. And it took less than a half a second to apply. So this thing is like basically like a gear change. Boop, it comes right down, and then you can see the converter slip percentage. Boink, right down to 0. Like, this is really quick how fast this is happening. So it's just coming along, doink, and then I changed throttle, like I lifted down to 0% throttle, so it unlocked for a little bit, and then boink, right back down to 0, 0.6 seconds. Just no problems. So I'm pretty pumped about this. So here was another one. Like, look at the supply time. So this is cruising along at 60 miles an hour, 846 slip. That's just 2,700 RPM. It's unlocked right now because there was some throttle changes, and then it wants to lock, and then doink, right to 0. So 1 second. So it's acting a lot better. I'm pretty happy with it. How it feels, everything felt pretty good. The converter, honestly, my old one, the stall was so high, and I want to blame it on the stall right now, a little bit less than the converter being, wonky. But this converter, the stall's about 400 RPM lower, but when I put it into drive or put it into reverse and I lift off the brake, it actually starts to move the truck, which I'm not really used to. The other one, I kind of had to rev it a little bit just to get it to go because the stall was a little bit higher. So overall, guys, long story short, I'm happy with where we're at right now.